Hey there everyone, welcome to Tales in Text and I'm your host Nisha Prakash and this is Bite Size Bharata where you hear tiny tales from a grand epic. The boat glided to a stop on the banks of a settlement. The sparse hut, made of water reeds and bamboo, gave the air of a quaint tribe nestled in the bosom of a forest. When Devavrata stepped out of the boat, all eyes turned towards him. The children playing in the water, the women cooking a simple meal of fish and fresh shoot, and the men thatching huts, carving boats, gutting fish, and doing a variety of tasks, all paused in their work to look at the handsome stranger who had suddenly materialized in front of them like a young god. Who had brought him here? They wondered. As their eyes scanned the party, they landed on young Satyavati, who hesitantly stood behind the group, her eyes nervously fixed on an old man who stood at the entrance of a large hut. Devavrata's eyes followed Satyavati's to the old man. He realized that this must be the maiden's father, the old fisher chief Dasharaja, the one who had refused to give Satyavati's hand in marriage to his father, the king of Hastinapura, Shantanu. Taking his coronet off his head in a show of respect, Gangeya Devavrata, Shantanu's son, humbly walked up to Dasharaja and did pranam. Sir, he began, are you the famed Dasharaja, the chief of the courageous fisherfolk who live on the banks of Mother Ganga? Dasharaja gave Devavrata a piercing look. After a long silence, he spoke. Yes, sire. I am the very same Dasharaja that you are looking for. But I hold another position too. I am the father of the maiden who brought you here. But of course, you already know that, don't you? Devavrata realized that the old fisher chief had guessed who he was and why he was here. He decided to get straight to the point. Yes, sir, continued the prince. I do know that, and I wish to speak to you about a matter of great importance concerning your daughter. May we speak now? Of course, said the fisher chief. But first, you must partake of our abundance. And saying so, Dasharaja produced a simple but delicious fare for the prince and his retinue. As Devavrata had his fill, he gently smiled and said, You have lived up to the tales of your generosity, kind sir. Pardon me as I press you to extend your generosity in another matter. Please wait! Dasharaja cut Devavrata mid-sentence. Please do not confuse my goodness with foolishness, O prince. I respect you and your revered father tremendously, just as I respect my daughter and her future, although she doesn't believe I do so. In fact, I respect all of you too much to trifle with your time and your feelings. He continued, my earlier reservations regarding your father's proposal still weigh heavily on my mind. I cannot give my daughter's hand in marriage to a man who cannot assure her her true happiness. Shocked at the fisher chief's bluntness, Devavrata burst out. But that's absurd. How could you possibly believe that your daughter will be unhappy as the wife of King Shantanu? She will be the sole queen of Hastinapura. I am sure you already know that I do not have a mother, so there is no other queen for her to compete with. Your daughter will be the chief queen of His Majesty, and as his chief's queen, she will have the right to sit by his side during rituals and festivals. And if that were enough, O Prince, to guarantee a lifetime of happiness, I would give your father my daughter in a heartbeat, interrupted Dasharaja. But you and I both know that it is not enough. He paused and took a shaky breath and continued. In any other royal family, as a chief queen, my daughter's sons would have the right to take over for the king as his heirs. But King Shantanu already has a son and an heir. You, Prince Devavrata. Would it be fair to deny her children, a chief queen's children, the right to the throne under these circumstances? Would my grandsons be happy taking orders from their half brother for the rest of their lives? If my daughter were to marry a fisherman today, even now her sons would have the right to rule over our tiny village. It may not be much, but it is something, because they would inherit their position from me. Can your revered father offer such an assurance for any sons he may have by my daughter? Tell me. Devavrata heard the fisher chief's words in silence. He thought about his father, that beloved man who had reared him with such love and devotion. Could he, Devavrata, not show his father his love for him by giving him his true happiness? Devavrata looked at Dasharaja and said, "You are right, fisher chief. I agree with you that it would not be fair for my brothers to take their orders from me for the rest of their lives. So I'll make it easy and remove the thorn out of their path towards the throne. I vow to forego all rights I have to the crown of Hastinapura from now to the end of my life. I abdicate my role as heir apparent. From now, any sons my father has by your daughter Satyavati will be eligible to rule and will be in line to be the king after my dear father." Cries of shock filled the air as the chief minister and members of the retinue exclaimed in horror. Dasharaja heard Devavrata's proclamation with a strange calm. He smiled slowly and replied, "The generosity and courage of the Kurus lives in you, O Prince. You have impressed me with your vow, and I thank you for it. But know that I will still not bestow my daughter's hand in marriage to your father." Hearing this, the chief minister angrily burst out, "Oh, you heartless fiend, you greedy ruffian! How can you utter such horrendous and punishing words? Our faultless prince has relinquished his rightful place and given everything to you. What more could you possibly want from him?" Dasharaja raised his hand to stop the minister's speech. "I understand your sentiments, minister. But you forget that you are speaking to a father who is trying to secure his daughter's future in a family which is entwined with the politics of the most powerful kingdom in Bharata. It is hardly a safe position for any woman, let alone her children. Don't you say so?" Dasharaja turned his gaze back to Devavrata. "O Prince, I really do admire your promise. But it is your promise and yours alone. What if one day you marry and your sons demand their right to rule? After all, if your father had never met my daughter, it would have been you who would have been next in line for the throne after the king, and after you, your sons. What if sometime in the future your sons raise their arms in rebellion against my daughter's sons and usurp the throne from them? What will happen to my child and her children? Can you, Prince, promise me that such an eventuality will never rise? That there will never be a shadow cast on my daughter's future or her children's reign for times to come? Can you promise me that, Prince Devavrata?" Silence echoed the fisher chief's words, a silence that seemed to stretch indefinitely with the weight of the demand, the price that Dasharaja had asked for in exchange for giving his daughter's hand to the king of the Kurus. Devavrata remained steeped in thoughts. This conversation seemed to have gone beyond all kinds of normalcy. A part of him clamored to just seize the maiden by force, take her back to the kingdom, and get her married to his father. consequences be damned. Another part of him screamed to not allow the fisher chief the satisfaction of extracting another unanticipated and unwarranted promise. But the largest part of him crooned the lullabies his father sang when putting him to bed as a child. It narrated the stories his father had told him about the greatness and morality of his lineage. It whispered the promises that his father had made to always take care of him and give him everything his heart desired. It did not take Devavrata long to make his decision. His mind was made up almost the moment the fisher chief had asked for an assurance. Looking straight into Dasharaja's eyes and ignoring the protests of his ministers to wait, Devavrata said in a loud and firm voice, "I, Devavrata, son of King Shantanu of the Kuru lineage, promise never to marry for as long as I shall live. I vow never to have offspring, biologically or otherwise, for the remainder of my life. I promise to live by the vow of Brahmacharya, a lifelong vow of celibacy and sexual abstinence, ensuring my father's lineage is not tainted by my blood. And I vow to relinquish my right to rule, bestowing the future kingship of the Kuru dynasty upon the son of Satyavati and King Shantanu. May the heavens hear me, and may all beings in the three worlds bear witness to my solemn promise." Devavrata's words thundered and echoed throughout the three realms. So strange and unnatural and frightening and final was this vow that all the celestial and subterranean creatures and the people around him bowed down to his iron resolve and bestowed upon him his new title, a name that he would go by for his entire life and beyond. Bhishma, the one who makes the terrible and fearsome vows, the one who makes vows no other man has the capacity to fulfill. Bhishma, the man who promised to put his duty towards his father over regard for his own self for the rest of his life. Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, like my video and subscribe to my channel. I'm Nisha Prakash, and this was Bite Size Bharata, where you hear tiny tales from a grand epic. I'll see you next time on Tales in Text.